Active or passive pickups? Which ones do you prefer? Today in Robert's Guitar Dungeon, we are comparing the differences between active and passive pickups. We are comparing three very similar guitars, not identical but similar. One loaded with Seymour Duncan passive pickups, one loaded with EMG active pickups, and a third guitar just as a variable that is loaded with Bartolini passive pickups with an active preamp in it. So I'm going to play, basically the same riffs on them, clean and dirty, and, kind of play, just kind of fool around with the dynamics, and let's see if we can really hear the differences on them. The main differences that I see between passive and active pickups is dynamic, and you know, I think each one of those definitely has their advantages over the others. You know, with passive pickups, you know, what I really like about passive pickups, and I'm a passive pickup guy. You know, the thing that I really like the most about passive pickups is, you know, you can still, even with high output passive pickups, which is what those were, you can still, you know, maintain, you know, a lot of definition, and you know, you can still, you know, even strumming full chords, you can still hear all of the individual notes. You know, and I also like the versatility of them, because when you roll the volume knob back on the guitar, in most cases, you know, they do tend to clean up a lot better than anything else. You know, so for guys that and gals that you know, prefer to play a one-channel amp, or only like to use the gain channel on their amp, you know, and prefer to get their clean tone by rolling their volume knob back, You know, that's probably the biggest advantage to passive pickups. Again, you know, you get a lot of tonal versatility with them. You know, even just by some slight adjustments with the controls on the guitar. So like I said, you know, you have that. You have, you know, the tonal definition. You tend to get a real percussive type of tone out of it, and you know, and I like them. You know, the one thing that they do lack compared to the others is you know, they don't have quite as much output as you know, as active or you know, or active preamps. You know, which is why they you know, which is why, you know, a lot of metal guys prefer you know, prefer active pickups. With the EMGs that I demoed, you know, they're, you know, again, they do a couple things very well. They do, you know, they do tend to play to they kind of have a unique tone, a unique clean tone to them when you're playing them through a clean amp, a clean channel on a tube amp. They do seem to do that pretty well. You know, and again, a lot of people really seem to like that clean tone that you can get out of them. You know, their biggest advantage, of course, is what they sound like when you're running them through a high gain channel. Again, which is why metal guys really like them. A couple of things that I consider to be cons with active pickups is, no, you know, number one, you know, they don't on a high gain channel, they don't necessarily clean up very well. You know, I was, you know, to get them to you know, to even clean up enough that it would pass for a halfway decent clean tone, I had to roll the volume knob on the guitar down so far that it was almost inaudible. You know, you know, you had to give up a lot of, you know, a fair amount of volume just to get it that clean. You know, so probably, again, not the best choice to be using them with a one-channel amp like a JCM 800 or something like that. The other thing that I don't like about EMGs is they seem to sound identical in just about every guitar on the planet. I've heard active EMG 8185s. You know, that real popular active EMG set. I've heard them in so many different guitars out there, and you know, without so much as plugging it in, I can tell you what it's going to sound like. It's going to sound like that. It's a great tone. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that tone. I do like it, and you know, and I do have three or four guitars that have active EMGs in it. You know, those very pickups. But I don't want them in every guitar that I have. The third guitar that I played, which is affectionately known as Frank. We named it Frank because it was a custom build and we don't know who built it, and there's virtually no history on it and no markings or anything to be able to identify it. I can kind of sort of pinpoint the year just based on the information that I got when I bought it, but beyond that, very few details about that guitar other than it's extremely well built and very unique tone wise. Really, the only guitar that I've ever seen that actually has Bartolini pickups in it. You know, Bartolinis are much better known in the bass player world. So even those pickups are difficult to find any information on. But what those pickups are, they're passive pickups with an active preamp in it. You know, similar to the way a lot of basses are wired. That guitar anyway, you know, that guitar with those electronics anyway do one thing and one thing well, and that is smoking high gain. You know, I demoed that thing with the active boost on and off, and you know, through the right amp, you know, you know, it does produce a really cool tone. I don't know that my Marshall is it, but you know, but they do produce a really cool, really unique high gain tone, and one thing they do very well is pick up pinch harmonics. Absolutely no definition whatsoever, particularly on the boost, on you know, with the boost activated. Absolutely no definition between the notes when you're strumming chords or anything at all like that. It does not clean up at all whatsoever. Yeah, like I said, it does one thing and one thing only very well. You know, if there's any intention to play clean, to play clean with that guitar at all. It ain't happening. I've tried it through every amp that I own. I've even tried it through the cleanest bass amp that I could find, the cleanest, highest headroom bass amp that I could find, and even it still even broke up a little bit there. So it is meant for for complete flamethrower distortion. I have played some other guitars that are wired similarly that seem to have the same effect. You don't find too many guitars with passive pickups and active preamps in them. It's again, that's a lot more common in the bass world, but but if you ever do run across it, it is something kind of unique. When I started this demo, I used 3 guitars that were all very similar to each other as far as how they're built and the materials that are used. They were all mahogany body, all neck through construction, all ebony fretboard, and all maple neck. So again, they're not going to sound identical, but but they're hopefully they will all be similar enough that we can kind of differentiate the differences between between all these different pickups. So there's my take on pickups. Different different types of high output pickups anyway. They're a lot of fun to play around with. If if you got a guitar that you're kind of bored with the tone, it can be pretty addicting to start modifying guitars and swapping out pickups, and you can totally transform the entire tonal personality of an instrument by doing that. Which obviously is why a lot of guys do it. Another thing that spare pickups are good for is donating to Share the Music, and you can find their contact information on their Facebook page, which is posted on the screen right now. And they take a lot of guitar parts and stuff, because oftentimes they will build a guitar. Take all the different parts that we can scour together for them, and they'll build a guitar and they'll give it to that next person in need that wants to get involved in music. So go check them out. You'll find out why I support them as heavily as I do. You can also visit me on Facebook. The link to my Facebook page will be listed on the screen and down in the description below. You can also follow me on Twitter and email me directly. And again, all pertinent links will be down in the description. Last but not least, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button for more videos with me yammering on about gear. Who doesn't want to hear that, right?